Hi, I'm going to use Lab 3 to demonstrate several Excel features that you need to know about, and some of these things I may have shown you previously in class, but nevertheless I'll want you to know how to do them so the review will be good. And then I'll also be introducing new material that you'll need to know in order to answer the take-home quiz. So let me begin by going to an Excel spreadsheet where I have all the data and formulas and functions needed to complete Lab 3. Okay, so you can see what the data should look like, and as I look at the columns of data that have been highlighted, this would represent data that you should type in yourself, and where I have columns of data that are not highlighted, this represents data that is either returned directly from the lookup table or is calculations based upon data that's returned from the lookup table. So let me start out by clearing everything, and I want you to be familiar with the clear tool and how it can be used, because here's a good example where this makes life really easy. So I have a function, a VLOOKUP function, assigned to all the highlighted cells D2 through D10, and after highlighting those cells I'm going to go on the home page, so I may need to click on the home tab. But on the home page, if I go clear over to the rightmost ribbon, that grouping of related tools, and click on the clear button, there's a down arrow. If I click on that, I've got an option to clear the highlighted data a variety of different ways. Now this is something I've demonstrated before, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it again. So the option that I want to choose in this case, just to get rid of everything and restore these cells to their original null value, is this tool right here. So I want to use this if I want to completely obliterate everything in the highlighted range. If I were to choose this option, it would keep the contents, but if the text had been enhanced with bold, or if it were numeric data where I had applied maybe a currency or percentage formatting, then it would clear out the format, eliminate the bold, eliminate the dollar signs, eliminate the percentage, and restore things back to percent represented in a decimal format. It would clear out all the formats and leave the contents. If I were to choose this option, it would do just the exact opposite. It would leave all those attributes assigned to the cell, but it would clear out the contents. Then if I introduce new contents, they would automatically acquire those formatting attributes. And I have previously demonstrated how to create comments, and I'll do that again before the demonstration is finished. But if a cell contains a comment and you want to remove the comment, this is the option. And then if I can remember here in this video to show you how to clear hyperlinks, a hyperlink is something that I can assign to a cell to give the spreadsheet the ability to jump to other data that's stored on the internet. And if I want to preserve the contents and maybe preserve the formatting and every other thing about the cell but remove the hyperlinks, this is the tool to use. So for what I'm trying to do right now, I want to use this tool. And I will clear out the contents here, and I will clear out the contents here. And at this point, the spreadsheet should be in the same state that it was given to you in. All right. And so what I want to do first of all is rebuild this spreadsheet, talk a little bit about the VLOOKUP function again so that it's perfectly clear, and then I'll continue on with some other things. All right, so let me go ahead and just rebuild the spreadsheet. So what you need to recognize is that in order to use this VLOOKUP function, there has to be some data in the spreadsheet that you're working with that relates to the index column of the lookup table. Okay, so in this case, every sweatshirt has an item number, and those item numbers are 1, 2, or 3. And if the item number associated with a sweatshirt is a 1, then I know that it is a crew style, that the shipping time to receive that, if it's ordered, is probably 5 days, and the cost is going to be $20. So this is the unit price of that item. So in this case, any large sweatshirt has a per unit cost of $20. And likewise, if it is 2, as would be the case for a medium sweatshirt, then that item number maps to this location in the lookup table, and I know that that sweatshirt is a hoodie style. Shipping time again is 5 and has a different price associated with it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. One of the things that you can anticipate, one of the things you have to build into your design maybe is a lookup table where the column of indices relate back to a particular column in the spreadsheet data itself. Okay, so you have to understand the data that you're working with and be able to make that association between some data item that you're working with and the indices in the index column of the table. Now, one of the things I want to point out to you too, and I mentioned this in class, but I'm saying it again, and hopefully if you didn't pick up on it before, certainly you pick up on it now. When you construct a lookup table, the indices have to be arranged in ascending order from the top row through the bottom row. Okay, so in this case, 1 comes before 2, 2 comes before 3. From top to bottom, they're arranged in ascending order. So that's a requirement. And at this point, what I want to do is go ahead and return the style, and I'm going to return the style directly from the lookup table. So I'll be returning from the style column or column 2 in the table. And so how I'm going to do that then is to go to the first cell where I want to return a value from the lookup table and type in a VLOOKUP function. So these functions do not have to be written in uppercase, but I think it's a little nicer to view them that way. So I'll go ahead and type the keyword in uppercase, VLOOKUP. And then the VLOOKUP function has 3 arguments. Those are the values that the function uses that are contained within parentheses, so the component parts of the function. And the first argument needs to be the watch cell, or the cell that I'm going to relate to the index column of the lookup table. So in this case, what I previously discussed was that the item number maps to the indices. So for this particular row, I want the VLOOKUP function to watch or monitor cell C2. And I am using a relative cell address here because eventually when I type this in, I'm going to copy this down, and when it copies into the next row, I want to change to C3, and the next row beyond that, C4, and so forth. So there's my first argument, and I'm going to put in then the absolute address of the lookup table here. Now, I can type it in if I want to, but I'm going to choose to do it this way rather than typing it in. I'm going to highlight the data in the lookup table, and notice I did not include the row 12 data. Those are just think that's row 12. Okay, so notice I did not highlight this. These column headings that are in yellow, they're not really part of the lookup table itself. So having done that, I'm going to go ahead and put in a comma and put in my third argument, which is going to be the displacement into the table where the return value is found. And in this case, once the spreadsheet goes to the correct row based upon comparing the item numbers to the indices, it would then need to go from the index column 2 columns over and return the data in the style column. So that third argument is going to be the displacement into the table where the return value can be found. And I'm going to hit the enter key, and everything's great, I think. And so if I highlight this first cell and drag down on the fill handle, I'm going to find out things aren't quite as great as they might appear. Okay, so I'm getting an error in all the cells that I copied into. So why is that? Well, I'm going to undo that copy. So up here at the top I have an undo tool. I'm going to undo the copy and then look in the formula bar here and inspect what's going on. And the reason for that is because I'm missing the $ in front of the row coordinates. So I had said that I wanted to type this in using absolute cell addresses. Now this is actually a mixed cell address, so I can put in absolute cell addresses to be just technically correct. An absolute cell address would contain a $ in front of both the row and the column coordinates. In this case, all I really need to do is just put a $ in front of the row coordinates, because when I copy a formula or a function down a column, it's the row coordinates that are going to change, not the column coordinates. So again, I'll place the $ there, and having edited the function, I'm going to click at the very end of it before I hit the enter key, and it returns the correct value here. And now when I copy down, it copies everything correctly. Okay, so my second argument again could be written as $J, $14, $M, $16, or it could be written the way I have it here with just the $ in front of the row coordinates. Okay, so I put in a function and copied it down, and now I'm ready to use the lookup table again. And this time what I want to do is I want to take the unit price, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 columns over into the table, and I want to return it back to this cell and then multiply it times the quantity, which is in the next column to the left. So as I type this in, I'm going to be creating an expression, a formula that contains as one of its operands the value returned from the lookup table. So how I'm going to do that is to put the cell pointer where I want the first formula to be inserted. I'll begin typing, and again I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function. So I'll go ahead and put it in uppercase, make it more readable. And I need to compare in my first argument, same as before, I need to compare the item number with the indices values. And so I'm going to then reference cell C2 in a relative way. I'm going to put in an absolute address of my lookup table, which is, I believe, J14 through M16. So this time I'm going to use I'm going to write this with $ in front of the column and row coordinates. And again, this will make for an absolute cell address, but at the same time, the dollar signs aren't really absolutely essential here in front of the column coordinates. So J, whatever that was, J14, I believe, colon, dollar sign, M16. So there's my second argument where I reference the address of the lookup table, and I messed that up. So try that again. Dollar sign J, come back over here. Dollar sign 14, colon, dollar sign M, dollar sign 16, and now my comma. Okay, so hopefully that's written correctly. And then since I want to return the cost, I'm looking to go to the 1, 2, 3, 4th column into the table. So my last argument, the displacement is going to be 4. And that's going to return, in the case where the item number is 1, it's going to return a 20. And that's not exactly what I want. I want to multiply that 20 times the quantity, since I'm getting 3 shirts at $20 each, and the quantity in this case is in cell F2. So I want to multiply times F2, and I have one too many parentheses there, so I want to take that parenthesis out. Hit the enter key. Hopefully I didn't mess up the formula. It returns a value of 60, and then if I drag down on the fill handle and copy that formula into all the remaining cells down that column, it should compute everything correctly. Okay. So there I use the lookup function in combination with, an arithmetic operator and some data in another cell to derive a new value. So that new value is derived in part from the data that's in the lookup table. Okay, so ready to put in the shipping time, and I can pull that directly from the lookup table out of the 3rd column of the lookup table. So if you followed along so far, then I should be able to type in another VLOOKUP function. I'm still going to compare the item number with the indices. So the item number for this row is in cell C2. The absolute address of the lookup table is going to be the range J dollar sign 14 colon M dollar sign 16. So there's my second argument, the absolute address of the lookup table. And then again, in order to return the shipping time, I need to start counting at the index column 1, 2, 3 columns over. And when I hit the enter key, in the case of item 1, which is a crew style sweatshirt, the shipping time is 5, shipping time is 5. And then I'm going to copy that down. It's going to copy in an absolute way. And there's my data. Okay. So, again, I'm going to try to demonstrate a few other things along the way here. That much is what you should have been able to do in order to answer the questions for the lab. Now, let me go ahead and just pretend that I'm you for a moment, and I'm going to leave the spreadsheet open. I'm going to go back to this Word document right here, and what you're supposed to do is to take these questions, copy them into another Word document. So I'm going to do that right now. Again, I'm going to pretend to be you. I'm going to highlight all these questions, do a Control-C to copy. After I highlight, Control-C to copy. I'll create a new file, new blank Word document, and I will go ahead and put a heading up here at the top. So Lab 3, and my name is Chuck Kuntz, and maybe I want to center this and bold it, and maybe I want to bold this part of it. Hit the enter key a couple times, do a Control V, V as in Victor to paste. There's my questions, and I'm supposed to now answer question number 1 by writing a function for cell H2, write the function so that it can be filled through cells H3 and through the range H3 through H10. So I'm going to open up a little space in here and go back to my spreadsheet. So I'm using the taskbar here to flip back and forth. I'm going to go to cell H2. There's cell H2. I'm going to highlight from the formula bar here. I'm going to highlight the function, execute a Control C after I highlight it. Go back over to my Word document, execute a Control V as in Victor. Then I'm going to highlight the function itself, and maybe use the highlight tool up here so I can use yellow if I want, if my printer will print that. Some printers don't print that very well, and 25% gray, although it's not all that pretty to look at on the screen, is one that prints extremely well. Excuse me. And there I've answered question number 1 from Lab 3. And then you would do that kind of thing for all the rest of them. And at this point, let me go back here. In fact, I'm going to close up this Word document. You see how it's supposed to be done. I'm going to close that up. And it's asking me if I want to save, and I don't. So I'm just going to ignore the save. And now I want to go back to a previous Word document and look at what I said I was going to demonstrate. I have not demonstrated the min and max function, so I'll do that here right away. What have I done? The Clear Tools option, I've demonstrated how to use the Clear Tool to completely remove everything in a cell, and I've talked about the other options that are available. Let's take a look at, just go from top to bottom, min and max functions. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to put in a, now, okay, for some reason, whenever I did this, it thinks I want to perform some operation on this cell, and I don't, so I'm going to hit the escape key and turn off the marquee. And come back down to this area in column F, and I'm going to put in max, and go down 1 and put in min. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to put in a function that's going to look at the range of cells from G2 through G10 and return the largest value that it finds. Now there are 2 largest values of 51.98, so where I have a tie condition, it'll return, one of those values. And so what I'm going to do is begin this function like all functions with an equal sign. And so I happen to know that there is a max function, but let me erase that for a moment. Let's say I don't know there's a max function. Then on the home page, you may have to click the home tab. If you go clear over to the auto sum tool and immediately to the right and click, you're going to get a listing of the most recently used spreadsheet functions. And by default, these are the ones that come up, I think. And if that's not a function that you're interested in, if you're interested in some other function, then if you'll choose more functions, you're going to get a dialog box, and it can be referenced several different ways. So right now it's attempting to show me the most recently used functions, and if I click on rand between, for instance, it will show me down here the general form of that function. Okay, so maybe it's a function that I haven't written in a while, haven't used in a while. Just seeing the general form of that function may be enough to jog my memory and allow me to go back to the spreadsheet, type it in, use it. If it's not, okay, then I can drill down into the help files, and what I would do is double click on rand between here, and let's see, don't want to do that. Let me try that again. Go back over here and choose more function, rand between, and there's a hyperlink down here for help on this function. So if I choose help on this function, it will take me into the Microsoft Excel files, and I can't remember whether these are now online. They are. Okay, so you may have to have access to the internet to be able to do this. If you're, somewhere disconnected, it might be a problem. But this will give me a lot more detail. So it'll describe what the function is and does. It'll show me the proper syntax, and then it'll typically show me several different concrete examples. And I think I might have mentioned this in class that many times I'm not a big fan of Microsoft documentation, so I do some programming in some languages, programming languages that are developed by Microsoft, and oftentimes the documentation for those programming languages is not real good in my opinion, but in the case of Excel, I think the documentation is fantastic. Again, the way they do it is they give you a description and the syntax, and then concrete examples, and typically more than one example. So you need to be familiar with how to drill down into this and access the help file information. All right, so I'm going to close that up, and in this case, if I am not interested in the most recently used, I can go to a different categorization. I could choose all and see every function that's available in alphabetical order. I could, if I know, for instance, that a function is, of the math or trig variety or time date or logical variety, I can choose here. I'm just going to choose all, and in this case I'm going to scroll through this alphabetized list, and when I get to the M's, as I surely will here in a moment, I see that there's a max function. Okay, and I can read what it says. I can drill down and see further description and concrete examples. But in this case, I'm just going to now close this up, cancel the entire dialog, and I'm going to put in the max function, which is very easy. It's equal max, and then I provide the range of cells, or doesn't necessarily have to be a range. It could be just a listing of cells. So with each cell address being a new argument, therefore I could say something like G2, G3, G4, but if I'm looking at all the values in a contiguous grouping, then I can just highlight it. The software will generate a range. I can close off the argument list, and so there's one argument now, and that one argument is the contiguous listing of cells from G2 to G10, or the range of cells from G2 to G10. And if I hit the enter key, it returns a value of 60. Oops, I said a little bit ago there were two values, 51.98, 51.98. I didn't see the 60, so my eyes failed me there as I inspected the data, and I only have just a few rows of data and still didn't pick up on that 60 for some reason. But the spreadsheet program is going to find the largest value, and you know, you may not really appreciate it with such a small set of data, but if I had hundreds of thousands of rows of data and I wanted to know what the largest value in that entire range is, then the max function would be incredibly easy to use and useful, and a lot less error prone than my scanning it and just visually inspecting it to see what the largest value is. Now the min function is going to work just like that, except the keyword is going to be min, and again I want to find the smallest value in this range, and it shows me that. So once that value is returned, very much like I did in calculating the cost with the VLOOKUP function, I can either display the value that the min or max function returns, or I could use it to, in an arithmetic operation, to derive yet another value. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Taking care of min and max, let's take a look at rounding and truncating. I may have to use the spreadsheet and add some data to demonstrate this. Okay, so going back to this spreadsheet, in fact, I really need to. Yeah, I can do this. For whatever reason, it would not make a lot of sense, you know, given that this data represents dollar amounts. But if the data represented values that were not dollar amounts, then I might want to either round to one place of decimal precision, or I might want to truncate to one place of decimal precision. So let me demonstrate how to round. Okay, so either referencing a single cell or a range of cells. On the home page, if you look over here on the number ribbon, you've got two tools where you can either expand the amount of decimal precision or you can decrease the amount of decimal precision. And as I look at the value 51.98, which occurs in two places, if I choose to decrease decimal precision using this tool, it will round, and the effect will be, having highlighted these cells, we'll take a look at cell G4. The effect will be, that's going to decrease decimal precision. The effect will be that it's going to round up. Okay, so that previous value of 51.98 is going to round to 60.0. And if I then increase the decimal precision, wasn't expecting that. Okay, so it continues to, at this point, use that rounded value and expand that rounded value. Okay, so it has made apparently a permanent change to that. No, it hasn't. Okay, I'm sorry, looking at the wrong one. So where we had 51.98, 51.98, again, if I decrease the amount of decimal precision, okay, so if I decrease the amount of decimal precision, it's going to eventually roll that value over, and if I increase it, it's going to have this effect. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But in any case, it's rounding. Now, what if I wanted to truncate that value? Well, I'm going to go down here and not mess with this value itself, but I'll go down here and type in 51.98. And let's say I want to truncate that to one place of decimal precision. If I truncate, it just lops the decimal precision off. So in this case, if I truncate 51.98, it will then to one place of decimal precision, it'll store 51.9 rather than rounding. And how do I do that? There's a TRUNC function. So I'm going to go to the formula bar and now use that value as an argument and invoke the TRUNC function. So there you have the TRUNC function right there. And notice the IntelliSense pops up and tells me some information about it. And it doesn't really give me the general form, so I think I remember this. It's going to require 2 arguments. So I'll go ahead and select TRUNC. It puts the fill. If I double click on the IntelliSense, it'll go ahead and write the function in. And I believe it wants as a first argument the value to be truncated, and then the second argument should be the amount of decimal precision that I want. So in this case, 51.98. First argument is the value I want to truncate, and 1, the second argument, is how much decimal precision I want. And if I've done this right, it should, where that function is assigned, return a value of 51.9, and there we have it right there. Okay, so that's how you truncate. You have to use a TRUNC function to truncate, but if you want to round, you have rounding tools that are on the home page in the number ribbon. Okay, so go back here and make sure I have covered that. Okay, so rounding, truncating, min and max, I'll just go ahead and highlight these to show they're done. And where to find documentation in Excel, done that too. So let's highlight that. And freeze panes. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate what this does and so forth, and I'll have to alter this spreadsheet. So freeze panes is incredibly handy when you have lots of columns of data. Okay, so let's say, and this is going to be kind of stupid, but let's say that way out here in, I don't know, let's go out to column Z. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so as I continue to advance the cell pointer to the right, I get eventually to column Z, and then the next column is going to be AA, the next column is going to be AB, AC, and that'll go clear through AZ, with then the next column to the right beyond AZ being what? BA. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to go clear out here to column AA, and I'm going to put in a column heading that says ID, and I will put a little highlighting on that, and then I'll put in a 1 here and demonstrate something that I've demonstrated previously, and that is fill series. Okay, so now what I want to do is not drag on the fill handle, but just simply highlight down through row 10 and go to the home page, to the editing ribbon, and on the arrow beside the fill button, choose fill series. It brings up a dialog box. It sees that data down this column is highlighted, therefore it understands that I want to highlight or I want to fill down this column. It's set to fill in a linear progression with a step size of 1, which means that as it fills into cell A3, it'll store a 2, A4, a 3, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and let it fill with a step size of 1 and just say OK. And it generates ID numbers now for all my for all the people that I show in column 1. Okay, Now, what if I want that ID number immediately beside column A? It's sitting way out there in the right somewhere. It's way out in right field. So if I want to compare those two columns side by side, if I want to display that data side by side, this is where the freeze panes feature comes in. So I'm going to go to the column immediately to the right of the column that I want to lock in place. So in this case, I want to keep column A locked in place, and I also want to keep these column headings in place too. So I'm going to place a cell pointer to the right of the column that I want to keep in place and below the row that I want to keep stationary. And then I'll choose the freeze panes feature. But for now, let me do this just to demonstrate. So if I'm interested in knowing what Larry's ID number is without using freeze panes, I could drop down here to row 2 and then begin to scroll over, and eventually when I get to AA, I can see it's 1. And then if I want to know what the ID number is for Sally, I could go down here and then scroll over and find that it's 6. So that's not very convenient. What I'd like to do is have them side by side. So I'm going to place the cell pointer to the right of the column that I want to keep stationary and below the row that I want to keep stationary, and then go to the View tab and click, and on the Window ribbon I have an option for freeze panes. Okay, there's actually freeze panes, and that will toggle between freezing and thawing. Okay, so that's going to turn the freeze panes feature on and off. So typically I'll want to use the freeze panes feature and then get rid of it. So I'll have to come right back to the same option on the menu to turn it off. Again, that'll toggle between freeze and unfreeze. So I'm going to choose freeze panes, and you're going to see some guidelines appear around the spreadsheet if you look closely. But now if I use the arrow key and move over, nothing happens. But as soon as I click on the button and go to the right, put the cell pointer in cell P2, it should make cell B2 disappear. So watch watch column B disappear. Column B disappeared. Now column C disappears, and you can see what's happening. And as I continue to go right, I can eventually get that data that's way out in right field positioned immediately to the right of the column A data, and then visually I can look back and forth and don't have to do a lot of scrolling. Okay, so again, this is useful when you have lots of columns and at some point you want to take two columns that are separated by many other columns of data and you want to put them side by side. You can use the freeze panes feature. Now I'm going to go back to the same place I was before on the view page, and if I click on that down arrow, you'll see that freeze pane is now displaying unfreeze, and if I choose unfreeze, then it restores the spreadsheet to the condition it was in previously. Okay, so I think that's more than adequate coverage there. Freeze panes. Merge and center, let's go ahead and just take them in order. Print options. So I haven't asked you to print a spreadsheet yet, but you will have to print a spreadsheet. So how can I do that? Well, if I have all my data that's grouped together like this, it may be to print, maybe just a simple matter of going over to the file pull down menu, choosing print, and it'll show me in preview form what it's going to print on this page. And in this case, it looks like I think everything's going to print. So cost is the last column. Let me go back. Cost is not the last column. And now what it has done, it shows me with this dotted line right here, which may not be real visible in the video, but there's a dotted line separating columns G and H. Everything to the everything in columns A through G will print in the current print orientation, and then on a separate page it's going to print everything from H to M. Okay, and so that may be okay, but again, I'm going to have the data spread out across two different sheets. It's going to be a little difficult to read. Let's say instead what I want is to get columns A through H to print on the same page. So how can I do that? Well, if I go back to the home page, and no, it's on page layout. If I go to the page layout page, I've got an option for orientation. It's currently positioned for portrait orientation. Okay, so that's kind of the standard way in which word processing documents are printed, where the 11-inch dimension of an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet of paper is the vertical dimension, and where the 8.5-inch dimension is the horizontal dimension. That's portrait orientation. If I rotate that 90 degrees, I have landscape orientation, and with landscape orientation, it will now print columns A through I. Okay, so it'll be able to print all that on one page. So that's probably what I would want to choose. Some other things that you can do to control, what gets printed on a page would be to shrink the columns as much as possible. And I demonstrated this before, that you can highlight all the columns, and then on the home page, go to the format option, I believe, and choose auto fit column widths. And what it'll do under those circumstances is make the columns as narrow as possible and still display everything that's in the cells within the columns. Okay, so that kind of optimizes the column width. You can set the column width to a specific value, and again, if you highlight multiple columns, you can set multiple columns to the same width. And I'll let you play around with that, but that's one way I can control things. I could reduce the size of the font and then optimize the size of the columns. And then finally, another way that you can squeeze a little bit more into a print area is to go to the let's see, must be the view page, and under, let's see, that doesn't seem right, page layout. Go to the page layout page, and under margins, okay, so this is page layout, the page setup here, and under margins, I usually use custom margins, and you can increase or decrease, left, top, bottom, and right margins just by using these up and down arrows. Okay, so I kind of leave that to you to play around with. All right, so that should take care of what I want to tell you about printing. And we've seen freeze panes, so check those off the list. Merge and center. And we've looked at the clear tool, but I'll come back and do a couple more things with it. So let's take a look at merge and center. So what do I need to do here? If I want to put in a custom heading up here, a title at the top of this page, what I need to do is create a few blank rows here at the top. So to do that, I'm going to go to the row heading over here on the far right where you see 1, right click and choose insert, and that'll insert a new row. I'm going to do it again, insert another new row. Has the effect of taking everything that's already there and pushing it down from that point on. And then I'm going to type in a title. Let's see what would be an appropriate title. Let's say sweatshirt form or something. Sweatshirt order. And hit the enter key, and I think I will increase the point size for that. So go back to the home page and increase the point size to 18. Okay, and then what I'd like to do is center this across my columns of data, centered across columns A through I. So in order to do that, now that is assigned to cell A1 at this point. But if I highlight, not drag on the fill handle, but just highlight and drag across all the columns that I want to center across, then on the home page, if I go to the wherever you are, merge and center tool, so it's on the alignment ribbon, click on merge and center, it'll have the effect of centering that across all the highlighted columns. Now, it looks like that is something that's being stored in cells D1 through F1, but it's not. The actual stored value is in cell A1. Okay, so if I look up here in the name box, A1 is the active cell, but it doesn't really display in that space. It expands where A1 is going to display across columns A through I. All right, so hopefully that was easy enough to understand. And now I'm going to add just a few more things here. So here in cell, whatever this is, look in the name box, F19, I have a TRUNC function truncating the value 51.98, and as I look at the spreadsheet data, you know, I see a number. I'm not really immediately aware that that number is associated with a function. So what I'm going to do is go to the cell and then right click and then choose insert comment, and I can stretch this box out if I want to make a lengthy comment. So this is an example using the TRUNC function. Okay, so I could type on and on and on and provide a lengthy comment. Then when I click off, I don't see it. I don't see it when I print it, but I have an indication in the upper right corner that something is stored in this cell other than just the value 51.9, and if I mouse over it, then as the mouse hovers on that cell, my comment appears. Okay, so that's the use of comments. You know, I find them to be extremely useful when I keep grades in a grade sheet. So if someone has a legitimate excuse and misses class when I'm giving a quiz or something, then I might just excuse them from that assignment and put a comment in that says excuse them because they were sick that day or something. All right, now, as great as comments are, you might want to get rid of it eventually. And again, if I go back up to the clear button here and choose clear comments, it's going to leave the function assigned to the cell, it's going to display 51.9, but if I mouse over it, the comment doesn't show up. And the last thing I'm going to do here one more time with the clear tool is highlight these headings up here at the top, which have been bolded, okay, bolded, and I've used a fill color of yellow to make the background stand out a little bit, or maybe I should say the fore color stand out more against the background. But in any case, if I wanted to, keep the contents but get rid of all the pretty formatting, I could go back here to the clear button and choose clear formats, and everything remains the same except those column headings aren't nearly as visible now. It's hard to distinguish the data from the column headings. Now, if I do that and think I don't really like that, I can always go up here and click on undo and restore things. And of course, if I undo and restore and go, oh, I think I really do want them turned off, I could click the redo clear and turn it back on. So get familiar with these, the undo and redo buttons. All right, what is left to discuss? Maybe nothing. I've shown some clear options, and I think that's more than adequate. Let's talk a little bit about the take-home quiz, and then this will be due on Monday when you come back. All right, so take a look at the quiz. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to use the highlight tool, which I previously demonstrated, in order to answer true, false, and multiple choice questions. I have a illustration of a spreadsheet up here, so I'm pretending to keep track of 3 different properties, maybe rental houses or something like that, and I'm recording information that relates to the first quarter of the year, January through March, and I'm keeping track of utility expenses for each property during those months. And then where I have call-outs, I'm asking you in question 1 right here. So this relates, Q1 relates to question 1, Q2 relates to question 2. As I go down here, I ask you to refer to the call-out Q1 and write a syntactically correct spreadsheet function, okay? Not a formula, but a function. So if I say formula, I mean formula. If I say function, I mean function. And if you give me a formula when I've asked for a function, you'll get it, even though it might compute properly, I'll still count it wrong. So that's the way things are shown for questions 1 through 5. They relate back to that illustration. Then question 6, pretend that's typed in some cell, okay? You have to adjust this, rewrite this, okay? That does not relate to that first illustration, okay? So it doesn't matter what cell that's typed into, you should be able to write it the way I described in question 6. Here's an example of where if, I choose either true or false, one or the other, then I need to go to the highlight tool, and again, probably 25% gray is the way to go on that. Likewise here, I'd choose whichever one, 25% gray, highlighting to mark the multiple choice questions. Here I show you a little snippet of a spreadsheet, and then again, multiple choice question, mark your response with the highlight tool. And just kind of doing a quick scan to see, what's in here, make sure I've covered everything. Here I'm asking you about the increase decimal tool that I demonstrated. So maybe it rounds, maybe it truncates, maybe it doesn't do anything. And in this screenshot, I ask you, how do you get to the documentation related to spreadsheet functions? So you can just take a pen or something and circle the tool that best allows you to get to those features in the spreadsheet program. And I think question 19 is pretty self-explanatory. And again, on question 20, you are to circle something on the toolbar here that allows you to, in this case, center the heading across contiguous columns. All right. So what I want you to do is to answer these questions, and if you have taken time to watch the video once or twice or 3 or 500 times, however many times is necessary to master the material, I see no reason why you wouldn't get a 100 on this quiz. So what I want you to do is answer the quiz, and then on Monday be prepared to turn this in paper form with your name signed on it, typed in up here where it says name. Make sure that your name's on there and turn this in. The quiz will undoubtedly span multiple pages, so make sure that the pages are stapled. Come prepared, have it ready to turn in at the beginning of class. And I think I've told you everything there is to tell you, so good luck with the quiz, and hopefully you understand all these many things that I have demonstrated in the video.